here is the insane interview that he did with Meet the Press exclusive, where he had a bunch of horrifying moments, horrifying for those who have any semblance of conscience, where in some of the key moments he basically said things like, I don't know about due process. It's kind of difficult to follow due process, things of that nature. So let's take a look.
On the eve of your inauguration, the stock market spiked. You called it the Trump effect. It
spiked because I was elected president. Well, it spiked because of anybody else. It spiked because they see what I'm...
Yeah, and then now the market instability is also spiking in the opposite direction. There is one metric that's spiking, the Volatility Index, the VIX. As far as other parts of the market that are spiking, they're spiking in either direction, as a matter of fact. It just keeps going like this, depending on whatever the he's saying that day. It's still a spike. It's a spike. Let me tell you, it's a big spike. You hear about this VIX? Someone should get in on this VIX. Everyone keeps telling me the VIX, the Volatility Index, they're saying it's like a new technology, I think. Volatility sounds like a technological tool, as they call it. Volatility Index, as they call them.
Now take a look at what happened. Oil is down, gasoline is down, groceries are down, eggs. You were the one that asked me. You asked me about eggs. It was the first week. I didn't even know anything about what were you talking about. Egg prices were so high you couldn't buy eggs. They didn't have any eggs. And they said Easter is going to be a disaster. Well, we had Easter at the White House, and we had thousands of eggs, and they were down 87%.
Yeah, a lot of that, of course, spike was because of bird flu. But when does it become the Trump economy?
Why do you say that?
Well, tell me,
we had the same bird flu as he had.
When does it become the Trump economy?
It partially is right now, and I really mean this. I think the good parts are the Trump economy, and the bad parts are the Biden economy.
Yo! Dude, yes! Yes! You rarely ever hear such clarity, okay? Yeah, the good parts are me. The bad parts are Brandon. It's how it is. It is how it is. Well, okay, it's all bad. So what's up? It's all Brandon. It's all Brandon. How are his supporters defending this? Dude, at a certain point, you have to realize, it's no longer about like accurate information. It's no longer about exercising critical thinking. We have long passed that point. All politics is devolving into cults. This is something that you can experience even with the quote unquote debate that I had on Friday. Everything is turning into cults. Everything is basically turning into like, I parasocially love this person, Donald Trump. He is my GOAT. He is my king. He is my legend. He can do no wrong. Everything he says is awesome. Everything everyone else is saying about him is bad faith. That's how it is. That is how it is. Look no further than the rest of the internet going, what the was this guy up to on the Friday debate versus Ethan Klein's own community turning around and being like, you killed him, King. You destroyed him. And all of the edgelord, apolitical centrist commentary slop tubers running around being like, yeah, you destroyed him when you conceded on virtually every point, including admitting to smearing him and consistently saying, oh, this is boring, let's move on, whenever you found yourself to be wrong. I'll go so far as to say there is a cult-like aspect to what I do as well. The difference here, however, is that I try to reach a broad spectrum of different ideologies on a daily basis and entertain back and forth from people who disagree with me. So when you're in here, you get to see a full spectrum of opinions.
We're doing really well psychologically. I mean, the fake news was giving me such press on the tariffs. The tariffs are going to make us rich. We're going to be a very rich country.
So let's talk about the tariffs. And I want to ask you about something you said this week. Got a lot of attention. You were at your cabinet meeting. You said, quote, I'm going to quote what you said, maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30.
Yeah.
And maybe the $2 will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally. Are you saying that your tariffs will cause some prices to go?
You know what's really interesting? I'm sitting on a mountain of unopened artifacts, okay? Figurines that I did not even realize would become a goddamn chest of gold, okay? You can't really see from this angle on the camera, but like above, behind me, all over this room, figurines that are now going to be like $1,000 a pop. I never thought that this would be a moment where I could just be like, listen, dude, your line ass saying you don't invest. Yeah, I have invested. I've never even taken them out of the box. No boo-boo lemons. No boo-boo lemons. None of the boo-boo lemons. Boo-boo lemons, folks. Cutie Cinderella. She's a very nasty lady. Very nasty. Said so many nasty things about me. I made sure she can't get any boo-boo lemons at her deco den. No more le boo-boos.
No, I think the tariffs are going to be great for us because it's going to make us rich.
But you said some dolls are going to cost more. Isn't that an acknowledgement that some prices will go up?
I don't think a beautiful baby girl that's 11 years old needs to have 30 dolls. I think they can have 3 dolls or 4 dolls.
This is just like degrowth. I don't know. He's like, that's right. It's they're calling it degrowth. That's right. This is not a Marxist, communist, fascist position. This is now the position of Trump.
But you said even dolls could cost a couple bucks more.
Maybe they might, but you don't need to have, as I said, 35 dolls. You can have 2, 3, 4 and save a lot of money. We don't need to feed the beast.
I guess you're talking about this transition cost.
In my entire life, I never thought I would hear a Republican American president say these words advocating for degrowth. It's just like, yeah, why do you need so many treats? Like, this is so crazy. Does he not realize that this is what allows Americans to not revolt? Like, the only thing that maintains American stability is a steady flow of treats. You take away our health care, you take away all of the social safety nets, the infrastructure is underwater. Every single day is another awful thing taking place in real time. People are horrified about the future and what it holds for them. But the one thing that keeps everyone alive, that maintains stability, is treats. And now Donald Trump, who some might even say ran on lowering the cost of treats and making them bountiful once again, is turning around and saying, you don't want the treats. Oh my God, Kohei Saito said based. Kohei Saito is a Japanese academic, Marxist academic, who is famously a big degrowth advocate. Once again, every time Trump gets to say these things, it pisses me off and it makes me incredibly and uncontrollably jealous. I am red with envy because I'm imagining a world where Bernie Sanders is also doing similar things after developing a robust manufacturing base and saying, we're going to have some fiscal belt tightening. I feel like if he were to come out and say that, like, there would be a Goldman Sachs assassin in the room. You know what I mean? They would send the CIA after him. I'm green with envy, not red with envy. Sorry. ESL.
Would you consider dropping the tariffs to get China to the negotiating table?
No. They first of all, you're giving me a statement that was said a week ago. You're not giving the statement that was said today.
I have May 2nd Chinese Commerce Ministry.
Do you know what they said today?
The U.S. wants to negotiate.
Forward.
It should show sincerity by preparing to take actions in correcting its mistakes and canceling the unilateral tariffs.
They made, first of all, they made numerous statements.
They've made numerous statements.
You know how many people speak for China? It's like 50
They've made numerous statements.
I can give you a statement for any occasion.
Yes.
But they said today they want to talk. Look, China, and I don't like this, I'm not happy about this, China's getting killed right now. They're getting absolutely destroyed. Their factories are closing. Their unemployment is going through the roof. I'm not looking to do that to China.
Here's what I'll say. I was talking to a friend of mine about this, and he actually had a really interesting analogy where basically right now it looks to be by Western analysts, and I don't think that this is, I don't agree with this analysis in general, but like the analysis is that China is on a 3-legged stool and it's under a lot of pressure. There's issues with its real estate market, and they have issues with their birth rate decline, and there's not a lot of great future prospect for China. This is the analysis from the Western world, right? From Western analysts. And what America is seeking to do is basically try and apply extra pressure, because this will most likely be the last moment that America will ever be able to apply pressure to China. It's the last moment where America has an opportunity. So Trump is doing this like incredibly cruel and ridiculous scheme to try and force every other trade partner of China to decouple from China. The problem, however, is, and you might have noticed why I said this is America's last opportunity to do this, is because America is on a two-legged stool. So even I think Western analysts that cope about China's positioning on the global stage as a trade partner, they are still very aware of America's position on the global stage as well. That is precisely the reason why it's like the last ditch effort to basically apply pressure and try to tilt Chinese manufacturing. And if they don't do this now, then it's over. It's completely over. I suspect that China is not on a three-legged stool, but instead a four-legged stool, and America is on a one-legged stool spinning like a top, as someone in the chat said. That is what I think. America's on a one-legged stool spinning like a top, and the leg of the stool is also made in China, ironically enough. It seems to me like maybe it's not going the way that America thought it would. As ASEAN joins Japan, China, and South Korea in protectionism warning, finance and central bank chiefs reaffirm commitment to free trade. Here is the statement. China, Japan, and South Korea and the countries of ASEAN just issued a joint statement in which they take a unified stance against escalating trade protectionism. A clear reference to Trump's tariffs. They write that their common policy priority is to reinforce long-term resilience of the region, which, given the policies they detail, clearly means building financial and trade infrastructure that aims to reduce their exposure to the United States. The statement outlines a comprehensive strategy to strengthen trade between the signatories, enhance local currency bond markets, and reduce dependence on Western financial institutions via, for instance, their expansion of the Chiang Mai Initiative Multilateralization, CMIM. Particularly notable is their explicit support for the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, the RCEP, ACN, the world's largest trade agreement that includes all signatories but not the United States. All in all, Trump is achieving the unthinkable, bringing East and Southeast Asia together in an economic bloc that seeks to de-risk itself from America. Now, I don't know if this is just strategy so that the other signatories can leverage America for more, because that could be the case, or if this is a real shot directly at Trump. We are not decoupling from China. I know that that is your demand, but we're not going to do that. They are far too valuable a trade partner to sever ties with. So we will not do that, especially because if they were to do that, there is no alternative. There's no alternative as it stands. There's no like rare earth minerals, right? Rare earth minerals. The refinement process of rare earth minerals is entirely in the hands of China. They have a complete monopoly on refinement. They almost have a monopoly on procurement too, with all of the deals that they've negotiated with nations in Africa, okay? But they literally have a complete monopoly on the refinement process. You can't do anything without that. What are you supposed to do? You can't do anything. Like, where is the alternative? Is it in India? Is that going to happen? What is the runway for such a thing? 10 years? 5 years?
One of the things that is going to bring and has brought, so I think we probably have close to $9 trillion of investments coming into this country. If you look at other presidents, there's never been anything like that. This is over a period of 2 months. You got to give me a little break on the 1 month because we're 3 months. But, you know, let's say we had to get started. We had a lot of
give me a little break. Dude, the funniest part about this is that if he didn't do the tariff scheme, none of this would be happening. Like, it's not even like, oh, you got to give me 1 month. Give me a little break. Cut me a little break here. Like, no, you are the one who it up. Like, this is your own design. Of course this was going to happen. And the medicine analogy isn't even wrong. That's the worst part. The economy is going to hurt in the short term, but we must, train our crosshairs on the long-term agenda of American stability, American growth, American manufacturing. That isolated as a statement is absolutely a correct statement. That's why the likes of Sean Fain and some others have been like, listen, we think that this is irresponsible tariff trade war, but if done correctly, tariffs are not bad. Trade protectionism is something that we are on board with. We don't like free trade. I get it. I don't like free trade.
That's Apple building $500 billion worth of plants. They always built their plants in China. Now they're building their plants over here. That's the biggest computer company, the biggest chip company in the world. The chip company from Taiwan, which is the biggest in the world, is committed for $500 billion.
In the short term, you get assurances from some of these like multi-billion dollar mega corporations that are multinational to turn around and say like, sure, we'll do some investment in America. Why not? There's no assurances though. It's not going to happen. You don't know if it's going to happen. Are they building the factories? How long would it take? Yeah, it's like this chatter. I also commit $10 trillion into the United States.
The thing that's not known is if you look back and see, oftentimes like China or Vietnam or other countries, not just China, because China's an abuser, but there are other abusers. Many of them are friends, the so-called, I say friend and foe, and friend is oftentimes worse than foe. But what people don't understand is, and this is a lot, the country eats the tariff. The company eats the tariff, and it's not passed along at all.
Well, some CEOs are saying they're going to have to pass it on. So how do you deal with those CEOs?
But the company,
how do you deal with those CEOs?
China.
Famously, it's not. Companies love eating the cost. I like that he's at least recognizing that companies actually pay the tariff. Companies famously love eating the cost. They have a sense of pride, a civic duty. Remember when they did that? Remember when OPEC did that? When the invasion of Ukraine started? And then all of the oil and gas industry in America famously was like, oh yeah, we'll make up for the manufacturing needs. We'll actually sell to America so that, prices can remain stable. Remember another instance of companies eating the cost. Remember when they famously lowered their prices post-COVID? When there was no longer an issue with logistics? I'm always thinking about companies eating the cost all the time.
Today's strong jobs report likely means, not clear, but likely means the Fed is less likely to lower interest rates.
Well, he should lower them. And at some point he will. He'd rather not because he's not a fan of mine. Just doesn't like me because I think he's a total stiff. And, it's just one of those things. He should lower them. And
he appointed him, by the way. Another Trump appointee that Trump is just on. He's a total stiff. Whoever appointed this guy is a real idiot.
In a 9-0 decision, the Supreme Court directed your administration to facilitate the return. You've talked about this in the past, of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, from a prison in El Salvador, whose deportation your administration called an administrative error. You said in a recent interview you could bring him back, but you won't. Are you defying the Supreme Court, sir?
No, I'm relying on the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, who's very capable, doing a great job, because I'm not involved in the legality or the illegality. I have lawyers to do that, and that's why I have a great DOJ. We have a great one. We had a very corrupt one before. Now we have a great one. And they're not viewing the decision.
I do think it's kind of funny, even if it's scary, that we've completely dropped all pretense that like the DOJ is supposed to be independent. He just keeps talking about the DOJ as his lawyers. They're not supposed to be your lawyers, dude. They're a part of the Department of Justice. You're acting like they're your lawyers. And I know they are, but that's crazy to just say. We've moved beyond any semblance of normalcy.
Do you have the power to bring Abrego Garcia back as the Supreme Court?
Well, I have the power to ask for him to come back if I'm instructed by the Attorney General that it's legal to do so. But the decision as to whether or not he should come back will be the head of El Salvador. He's a very capable man.
Well, and your Attorney General has said the issue is with that word facilitate. Will you seek clarification from the Supreme Court? Do you need to go back to the Supreme Court?
We may do that. I was asking about that. We may do that. There are some people that say, bring him back, put him in trial, and you get him out right away because you see what happened just this morning. Tapes came out, horrible tapes from his wife. You don't get much worse than that. You don't get, he seems certainly like a very...
Trump's ex-wife literally detailed out how Donald Trump physically, violently assaulted her and raped her throughout their marriage. I'm pretty sure, right? The tapes he's referencing is like, I think it was like the initial testimony to potentially get a temporary restraining order. Kilmar Abrego Garcia had a temporary restraining order taken out against him, or at least filed for, that was never enforced. At the time, the woman who was like demanding his return to the country, she's already talked about this and said that this was like out of an abundance of caution, and that they had very clearly worked out their differences by going to counseling. Out of an abundance of caution, due to the actual domestic abuse that she had received in her first relationship before Kilmer Abrego Garcia, she took out a TRO.
I have tremendous respect for the Supreme Court. Look, 3 of the people are people I appointed.
Right.
And I have great respect for the Supreme Court. And I would expect that the Attorney General will be doing the right thing.
Your Secretary of State says everyone who's here, citizens and non-citizens, deserve due process. Do you agree, Mr. President?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
Well, the Fifth Amendment.
Dog, you're the president. You literally put your hand on the Bible when you pledge an oath that you will uphold the Constitution. That's it. What do you mean you don't know? I don't know. I don't know about due process. Actually, he didn't. Okay, wait, there wasn't a Bible? Oh, he's the Antichrist, bro. Okay, whatever. It doesn't matter that he didn't. He still took an oath of office. Oh my God. They get away with so much, dude. That type of is like things that Republicans would basically hallucinate the Antichrist is returning if it was like a Democrat that did something similar. Oh, this is a joke. I know it's a joke, but it doesn't matter. Like, you're not supposed to admit that it's a joke. What do you mean? The entire, like, it's symbolic, but the whole point is like you're supposed to protect the Constitution. Due process is in it. It's a pretty important part of it, actually. Yeah, Joe Biden took the oath of office. Donald Trump swore on 2 Bibles for his first inauguration, one given to his mother when he was a child, and the Lincoln Bible. These 2 Bibles were present at Trump's side during his second inauguration, but he did not place his hand on them. Oh my God. Why are you applying such a high standard to him? Why can't you account for his age? Yeah, you're right, dude. He's just a little guy. He's just old, man. He don't know what he's saying. It's fine. Who cares about due process? It YOLO. Oh my God, the Bibles are right there. He's not even holding it. First atheist president.
Even given those numbers that you're talking about, don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as president?
I don't know. I have to respond by saying again.
Okay, I take it back. I said she was doing a good job, but in this situation, you have to switch gears because you're not talking to a normal president. You have to switch gears and explain to him the importance of due process. When he says, I don't know, you have to literally turn around and be like, okay, if there's no more due process, then anyone and everyone can be falsely deported. That's the problem. You can't have ICE agents be judge, jury, and executioner. That cannot happen. That is the reason for why due process exists. You are a Republican. You have talked about witch hunts. You have talked about being falsely smeared. The reality of the matter is you got due process. And if it wasn't for due process, if you hadn't gotten due process, you could have potentially been locked away permanently. Don't you feel like this is the good reason as to why there is a concept such as due process? Like, you have to lower your argument when your opponent demonstrates that they do not care about the normalcy or like the normal function of institutions. You have to move beyond just simply pointing to those institutions and saying like, well, don't you think we should preserve them? Even if it's an institution as important as like the Constitution or the Supreme Court, it doesn't matter. You have to demonstrate why the removal of due process is bad. You have to explain it to him, and not just explain it to him, but his own fan base that is going to be tuning into this frequency also will be able to understand why this is scary. Of course, Trump could then deploy the excellent debate strategy of saying, this is boring. Don't you want to make content? And maybe start making fun of her mannerisms, and even mannerisms that she doesn't even have. This is unwatchable. You are ruining the content. This is why your ratings are low. Boring. I know you're at CNBC, but what do you have to say about ABC calling me a coward? What do you have to say to that? Mr. President, I work for NBC News, not ABC. Well, you can make a value judgment, right? Make a value judgment about ABC's commentary now. Do it now. Do it now. You're making it boring. You sleep in a race car bed. I sleep with my wife in my big bed with my wife, Melania. It's true. I don't think he understands this is the major point of contention. We can't have a trial for every single person. That would be millions of trials. I don't think the Supreme Court will stand for that. I can't believe it, because you know what? If they do, we're not going to have a country. No, like, this is the dumbest argument against something that is supremely important to the Constitution, which is it's too hard. Like, basically 1,000 years, almost 1,000 years of like liberal concepts, okay? 1,000 years of like liberal philosophy versus one guy saying it's too difficult. Like, bro, they had courts and some semblance of due process when there were kings. Like, what are we talking about? Like, they had courts during kings. What do you mean? It's too difficult. It's too difficult. We can't do it. We can't do it. Courts are bad content. I never liked it. We must do away with the courts unless they like me, in which case I will allow it. I will allow it.
Trying to get very good ones. I mean, we need judges that are not going to be demanding trials for every single illegal immigrant. We have millions of people that have come in here illegally. And we can't have a trial for every single person. That would be millions of trials. The people elected me in a landslide with every single, we won every swing state, we won everything there is to win by big numbers. Not only swing state, we won the popular vote by millions of votes. They elected me, this was the number one issue. And now we have judges radicalized and they're crazy. Because they want us to have, if you believe this, they want us to have a trial for every person that came in illegally into our country. So they come.
Yeah, I can believe it. What are you saying? That is how it's been done. What do you mean? Can you believe it? They want every person that I think is bad to be going through the court system. Like, what the are you saying? Yes, dude, that's the law. What are you talking about? Of course, that is supposed to be the way things work. You can't just turn around and be like, look at how stupid these rules are. Can you believe it? He doesn't even acknowledge that that is a rule, by the way. He just says it's so crazy.
Come into our country illegally, and then we're supposed to take weeks, I guess, and months to have a trial on every criminal, and we have murderers all over the country. I don't think the Supreme Court will stand for that. I can't believe it. Because you know what? If they do, we're not going to have a country.
Like, that determination of whether or not someone is in here illegally and must be deportable is profoundly important so that citizens aren't getting deported, even by his own standards. But no one has seemingly brought this up to him. Like, what the do you mean it's too difficult? The whole point is you don't know if someone is actually even an undocumented citizen. Like, what are we talking about?
Let me ask you about some news that broke. You are threatening to rescind Harvard's tax-exempt status.
Yeah.
And yet directing the IRS to investigate and rescind a university's tax-exempt status is contrary to what's in the federal law. The law says you can't do this. Do you think you're following the law?
Well, I tell you, I'm going to just follow what the lawyers say. They say that we're allowed to do that, and I'm all for it. But everything I say is subject to the laws being 100% adhered to.
Are you willing to take this to court if it becomes a court fight? You're going to take it that far?
We've won a lot of cases.
All right, let's talk about some of the other actions you've taken over the past 100 days.
Bro, what's so funny about it is, like, when he says we won a lot of court cases, he actually hasn't. But I guess his advisors keep telling him that decisions that come down from the Supreme Court, for example, like the Abrego Garcia return, like, he literally just listens to his lawyers, and his lawyers are like, yes, Mr. President, it was actually unanimous, 9-0 in your favor. Like, that's what Stephen Miller said. And Trump was like, come on, Stephen. You're so beautiful. Come on, Stephen, tell him what you told me about the Supreme Court decision. And it's crazy that, like, he just lied on national television. That is not what the Supreme Court's decision is. It's the exact opposite. The more I see of Trump on the main stage, the more I realize he is also Brandonized and is being used like a mecha, like a flesh puppet by the likes of, like, Stephen Miller and some of the most reactionary Nazis.
I have no idea who this guy is. And he's out there. And then he did a book called Anonymous. I think that's really subversion. I think it's spying. It's something really bad.
But you passed an executive order calling for your attorney general
he's been
to
looked
investigate
at
that
for a long time.
Oh my God, that's so insane. He's trying to say that this dude was doing espionage for writing about his experience of being in the room as like a low-level staffer or whatever.
And said that the election was so wonderful. It was it turned out it wasn't a wonderful election. It was a corrupt election.
Let me ask it this way, sir, because when we talked in December, I asked you, what is your message to people who didn't vote for you? Let me remind you of what you said. You said, I love you, and we're going to all work together. How does pursuing your political foes help to unify?
Did I really say I love you?
You really did. That's a direct quote.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right, but I'd like to see.
I promise I'll show it to you. I'll show you the tape.
Look.
How does that help to unify
I want to
the
treat
country?
people fairly, whether they voted for me or not.
This is like Ethan Klein being like, 110? You mean to tell me I've sent 110 Instagram stories? Well, that can't be true. You mean since 2023? You're telling me it's since 2021, January 31st, 2021. I don't believe you. I don't believe it.
People who have lived in countries like the Philippines, Hungary, Russia, they look at some of your actions going after civil service, going after universities, law firms, the media. They say it's out of an authoritarian playbook. What do you say to those who believe you are taking the country down an authoritarian path?
Well, there you go again. Why don't you ask it a different way? Many people wanted to come into our country. Many people love Trump. I won the election. They didn't win the election. I got a lot more votes than they did. I won the popular vote. I won all 7 swing states by a lot.
Great answer, man. Great answer, dude. Incredible answer. What do I say to this, you know? What do you say? He's like, what you're doing is really authoritarian. He's like, no, I got the popular mandate. They want me to be this way.
To give you a chance to respond to them. What do you say to those people, sir?
Those people are going to be very happy. They're going to have to see some results. And I think we had a great 100 days. There are a lot of people that say it was unprecedented. It was an absolutely unprecedented 100 days. And
by the way, as a longtime Trump stan, you know, because I'm apolitical, I noticed that he started doing this new thing where he always goes, why don't you ask me the question in a different way? That's new. That's a new meta. And I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know who taught him that. I don't know why he says that, but he always says that now. When he doesn't like a question, he goes, why don't you ask nicely? Why don't you ask me nicely? Why do you ask such mean questions? He's used to the new White House press pool questions. No, I know, but I'm saying like, I just don't know where that, like who taught him that?
You've branded your own cryptocurrency. The coin's values actually surged recently after you announced that top holders would be invited to have dinner.
I don't even know that. What did it surge to?
What did it surge to?
Yeah, what's it worth? You might as well tell me because I have no idea.
Well, it surged. It surged. I will find it. Hold on one second. 5.2 or 58%. So 58%.
To what number?
That's not bad. 14.32.
What? Billion?
No, dollars per cryptocurrency.
$billion dollars?
No.
What's the number? I mean, what is the amount?
The meme coin's value hit a peak of 75.35 on January 19th.
But that doesn't mean anything.
And that's before your inauguration, and then it surged.
Look, I'm in favor of crypto.
Let me just ask you, what do you say to those who argue that when they hear that, they worry you're profiting from the presidency?
I'm not profiting from anything. All I'm doing is, I started this long before the election. I want crypto. I think crypto is important because if we don't do it, China's going to. Mm-hmm. And it's new. Mm-hmm. It's very popular. Mm-hmm. It's very hot. If you look at the market, when the market went down, that stayed much stronger than other aspects of the market. But I want crypto because a lot of people, millions of people want it. I don't know if you know that Biden went after it violently, and then before the election, he changed his tune entirely. His head of the SEC, everybody changed their tune. You know why? Because there were hundreds of millions of people that are...
There ain't no way this dumb is going to send me to a camp. He is. All of us. In some ways, it makes it so much worse that it's not even like a competent or smart strategist that is going to be sending all of us to concentration camps.
Stock market goes up. I guess I'm profiting. But who really profits is somebody like Nancy Pelosi, who uses inside information. She worked for $175,000.
Wait, he's saying so he's profiting exactly like Nancy Pelosi, but it's bad because Nancy Pelosi did it. But it's good when he does it. Like, that's the argument here. The argument here is, who's really profiting? Nancy Pelosi, just like me.
They told me before this that you will probably be asking me whether or not I'm going to contribute my salary again, but you haven't asked that.
Are you going to?
Yes.
You are? Okay.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Well, I appreciate we just made news there.
Oh, you've made news in a lot of different parts of this conversation, I will say. Like when he said, I don't know about due process. It's too hard. It's too hard.
That are so terrible. 5,000 soldiers are being... Look, 5,000 soldiers a week on average are dying. Okay. They're not American soldiers. But I want to solve the problem. They're Russian soldiers and they're Ukrainian soldiers. And if I can save 5,000 souls, I just love doing it.
How long do you give?
That's why he's doing it in Gaza. my beautiful president. Oh, that's sorry. He doesn't give a about that. He wants to ethnically cleanse the entirety of the Gaza Strip.
His ambition was stopped to a large extent when he saw that it was me that was now leading the charge, because he wasn't dealing with anybody in Europe. He wasn't calling him back. Do you know that I asked him, I said, did Biden ever call you in 3 years? Did Biden ever call? He said he never called. Do you know Biden didn't call him one time? And all these thousands of soldiers, hundreds, millions of...
Bro, that's crazy. Putin loves me. He hated Biden. This is a good thing. This is a good thing. You don't understand it. Believe it. Vladimir, no. When I said that, trust me, he heard me. He said, Mr. President, I will no longer do death and destruction.
You have long talked about making Canada the 51st state. There's obviously a new Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, who you spoke to after his victory. He says that you didn't talk to him in that call about making Canada a 51st state.
No, he called me. He was very nice, and I congratulated him. He had a victory. It's a very close victory. It's, there's no majority or anything, so that's going to make things a little bit difficult, I think, for him to run. But he nevertheless had a victory, and he's a very nice man, I think.
Do you plan to talk to him about making Canada a 51st state?
He wants to come and see me. He's going to come this week or next week.
So will you talk to him about making Canada a 51st state, annexing Canada?
I'll always talk about that. You know why?
Because I'm crazy. Because I'm out of my goddamn mind. That's why I always will talk about Canada. Because I'm off my gourd.
If Canada was a state, it wouldn't cost us. It would be great. It would be such a great, it would be a cherished state. And if you look at our map, if you look at the geography, I'm a real estate guy at heart. When I look down at that, without that artificial...
Marx Carney, alongside with dear leader Xi Jinping, please save us. Marx Carney, save us. Karl Marx Carney, I didn't know what your game looked like, okay? Just save us. Marx Kami, save us. Marx Carney, we will become a bountiful province. I will start saying, don't you know, randomly. I will start saying, I apologize. I'll even add an A in the end of my conversations. Marx Carney, save us. Save us, Karl Marx Carney. Put America on the Belt and Road. Let's close the belt loop. Okay, you got one belt, one road, and it needs to be closed. And guess how we close that one belt and one road? We close it by putting the belt loop directly on the United States of America, a Canadian province. Hey, bud. Marx Carney gonna come out and be like, he said he was gonna do the Amerification of Canada, but we just Canada-fied America. I did NATO.
Pay $200 billion a year to subsidize Canada. Again, remember this.
Yeah.
We don't need their cars. We don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We don't need...
He's so good at being a national socialist. Like, he is actually the method. Like, he is doing the Hitlerian method so hard. He doesn't have the ideological acumen or the conviction to follow through on this agenda, even though he is surrounded by people who very clearly do, like Stephen Miller, who is a Nazi through and through. As far as the rhetoric goes, like, he says borders are a scar on the face of the earth, like he's Giannis Varoufakis. When talking about the annexation of Canada, he talks about how you don't need these many commodities. Let us rid ourselves of these material possessions and care about what truly matters. You don't need 35 different toys. You can make do with 3 or 4. Of long gone are the days where we wanted to constantly seek out abundance. It has taken a major toll on the environment. We must go back. We must return. And then why is he doing that? Oh, because he wants to decouple trade from China, from all of China's trade partners, because he wants to, I guess, nuke China without having too much of a severe repercussion in the process. It's crazy. He has the populism down pat. This man could tomorrow, if he wanted to, I think, bring about Medicare for all to this country. He would never do that because he is a capitalist through and through. But I'm not even kidding when I say he could just come out and be like, every American deserves to be saved. There is no freedom until you have freedom from medical debt. Can you believe it, folks? America's the only country in the developed world that still has the concept of medical debt. How can you claim to be free? How can anyone claim to be free if you have the freedom to what? Choose which healthcare provider you're gonna get shellacked by? That's why I'm abolishing the profit-centered, privatized healthcare structure, an expensive middleman that no one wanted. And I'm also freeing Luigi Mangione. I'm taking him out of prison, folks. Look at how beautiful he is. He looks like he just came out of central casting, folks. He looks like one of those guys. Italian, beautiful Italian eyebrows. I took one look at those eyebrows and I said, Medicare for all today, Medicare for all tomorrow, and Medicare for all yesterday. He comes out of the gate swinging like that. All the cult turns around. FDR numbers, woke Trump. We will put him in our new movie, Alcatraz with sharks. Oh my God. My administration wanted to make America healthy again. That's why we brought the beacon of health, RFK Jr. And together, it is our duty to make America truly healthy. And America will never be truly healthy until every American has the opportunity to go to a primary care physician. That's right, folks. Imagine. Just close your eyes and imagine for a second.
Would you rule out military force to take Canada?
Well, I think we're not going to ever get to that point. It could happen. Something could happen with Greenland. I'll be honest. We need that for national and international security.
But not
I
with
think
Canada?
It's highly unlikely. I don't see it with Canada. I just don't see it. I have to be honest with you.
Okay, but you don't rule it out for Greenland.
And by the way, Canada, they spend less money on military than
Bro, what is this conversation that's taking place? The United States of America's president is talking about how he won't rule out a military annexation of Greenland, dude, of a NATO nation. Oh my God. And he's like, nah, not Canada. It's fine. We won't do it to Canada. I'll spare Canada.
You know, civilian energy often leads to military wars, and we don't want to have them have a nuclear weapon. It's a very simple deal. I want Iran to be really successful, really great, really fantastic. The only thing they can't have is a nuclear weapon.
Okay.
If they want to be successful, that's okay. I want them to be so successful. And you know, the Iranian people are incredible. I just don't want them to have a nuclear weapon because the world will be destroyed.
There's nothing funnier than him turning around and trying to re-implement the Iran denuclearization agreement, which, of course, the first time around, his signature accomplishment was destroying it at the behest of Israel. Okay, Jerome Powell is like, who's the stupid guy that appointed him? Or tax cuts that are slated to sunset. Who's the stupid guy that designed the tax code to sunset by this point? Or the Iran denuclearization agreement is like, who is the dumb guy who told Iran that they no longer have to abide by the denuclearization agreement? Who the hell brought all these Venezuelans into the country? Who in the hell would bring all of these Venezuelan Trenderagua gangsters into the country? Trump did all of that. Every single thing that he's complaining about, he did his first administration. Can you explain how he did that? Donald Trump literally extended temporary protected status to Venezuelans on his way out again. Like literally, one of his last acts in office was to extend temporary protected status to Venezuelans. The reason why he did that was because he hates Venezuela. Out of all the authoritarian strongmen that he loves, the one that he has always despised, and I truly don't know why, it doesn't fit that profile at all, but he hates Maduro. In the process of like undermining Venezuela, they greatly escalated the sanctions regime against Venezuela with the express purpose of destroying Venezuela's economy, knowing full well that there would be a population collapse in Venezuela that would then have to go to either Colombia or neighboring countries or other neighboring countries or come to the United States of America. And he knew that there was going to be a massive amount of people that were escaping Venezuela for a better life in the United States of America, obviously. And He turned around and offered them temporary protected status. He offered them to Haitians as well, but especially Venezuelans. On his way out, he extended additional temporary protected status to the Venezuelan migrants that were coming into the country. Now that he has this like weird smoke for Venezuelans, like it makes extra less sense, if that makes sense. I don't know. I don't know why he's decided that he hates Maduro extra hard.
If you look at President Polk, he was a one-termer and he did some great things, actually. Pretty good president. And I'm not saying you can't do that, but there's something about being a two-term president that was very important to me.
And just to put a button on it, has anyone in an official capacity presented you with, sir, here are some ideas by which you could actually get a constitutional amendment?
Notice how the number of attempts on his life has diminished drastically since he became president. The people love this man. That's an interesting metric. Interesting metric to look at. Yes, you are correct.
I look at the Democrats. They're in total disarray. They have a new person named Crockett. I watched her speak the other day. She's definitely a low IQ person. And they said, she's the future of the party. I said, you have to be kidding. I don't know what they're going to do. I really believe in a two-party system.
Oh, no. He's flexing. He's doing the Nancy Pelosi. He's like, I want a strong Democratic Party. I want a strong Democrat Party. That's what I want.
But, I do have a vice president, and typically it would be, and JD's doing a fantastic job.
He would be at the top of the list?
It could very well be. I don't want to get involved in that. I think he's a fantastic, brilliant guy. Marco is great. There's a lot of them that are great. I also see tremendous unity. But certainly you would say that somebody's the VP. If that person is outstanding, I guess that person would have an advantage. But I think the other people would all stay in unbelievably high positions. But, it could be that he'd be challenged by somebody. We have a lot of good people in this party.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated.
That was a masterclass. Masterclass, folks. Master class.